Let's go live to Washington. Our colleague Laura J is standing by. Laura, I was intrigued by what Mick Mulvaney said to you a bit earlier about those exit polls suggesting that younger voters might not necessarily be turning out in the same numbers that they did at the presidential race.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We've got some more information on that, particularly in Nevada. The exit polls or the early polls are showing us a few things. Let's bring in Mick Mulvaney once again. You've been speaking to your people on the ground. Yeah. Let's talk Nevada. The turnout really low there. What's going on?
They've got some really bad weather. And I know it sounds strange to folks in Australia that weather actually makes a difference, but it does here, again, because we're not compulsory. Thunderstorms, rainstorms in Las Vegas, which is the only major city in in Nevada, and then storms, snowstorms in Reno, which is the second city. So it's between those two things, it looks like the weather might be impacting the outcome in that very critical western state.
So voter turnout being really low in Nevada, that's bad for the Republicans, right?
No, it's actually bad for the Democrats in that particular race, and here's why. The Republicans have what we call an enthusiasm advantage. Their people want to vote more than the Democrats. So when the weather turns nasty, the folks who really want to vote still vote, and the people who are sort of on the fence about voting tend to stay home. So in that particular state, low turnout would actually help the Republicans.
Okay, we just saw Annalise looking pretty warm, I might say, there in Georgia. A bit different to us here, Mick Mulvaney. But looking at the state of Georgia, because we know that 6 polls have just closed, two of the biggest states there, Florida and Georgia. Let's talk about Georgia first, because there are 2 races, the gubernatorial race.
Well said.
And also the Senate race there. Now, what's going on? Because there could be 2 very different results tonight for both Republicans. Talk us through that.
Yeah, you could see a circumstance where the Republican incumbent Governor Kemp, could win by 7, 8, 9, even 10 points. He's very popular in the state, even though he challenged Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually came out against him in a Republican primary. One of the few Republican primaries that Donald Trump his candidate did not win. So the Republican governor, who's running in the entire state, could win by a wide margin, and the Republican Senate candidate could lose or go to a runoff or win by a very small margin.
And that is Herschel Walker.
That is Herschel Walker.
Why?
Because it's a difference in the candidates. It's hard to run for office in this country. It's a really big business. Keep in mind, again, $250 million spent on that. That's like running a large company. So you've got somebody who's never done it before in Herschel Walker versus someone who's done it before in Governor Kemp. So you sort of see the difference between having really, really good, experienced candidates and folks who are sort of trying to learn on the job.
Yeah, and that's right. But also looking at the difference, and I just want to explain to our audience as well, there's so many races, so many things going on in the midterms. The gubernatorial race doesn't affect Congress. That is like a state premier, if you like, our equivalents. But Herschel Walker wants to run for the Senate, where the Republicans really want to get up there. They want the red wave to go into both houses. So that's the difference there. Let's talk about Florida, because Florida is not a swing state.
Not anymore.
No, it was never. But let's talk about Ron DeSantis.
Okay.
If he increases his vote, which he's likely to do, he seems extraordinarily popular. Throw forward to the presidential race a little bit. What happens there between him and Trump?
Well, certainly he's on the short list of people who might run for president and could win the Republican nomination. He's got that in large part because of his performance during COVID as the governor of a large state. It used to be in this country, Laura, that we nominated governors for president. It was very rare for us to nominate a senator. Before Barack Obama, you have to go all the way back to John Kennedy before we elected a senator to be president. It's always been governors. And Ron DeSantis sort of fits that more traditional mold. He ran the state well during COVID. The economy did very well, and people looked at him as sort of, there's somebody we'd be curious to see how he does at a higher office. He will do better in terms of total votes tonight because about 3 million people actually moved into Florida since the last election, in large part, again, because of COVID. So it's not just will he do better, it's will the margins actually broaden out? Will his appeal move beyond just what you've referred to previously as the MAGA Republicans to more independent voters, swing voters, and even some Democrats? That's what we're looking for Ron DeSantis tonight.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about Donald Trump, because he wants it to be all about him at this point, because he is feeling the red wave. He feels it's going to be big. Let me just read you a quote, because reminding our audience that you were his chief of staff.
I have spent some time with him, yes.
You spent some time. Well, let me read you this quote. It couldn't get any more Trump. Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit. If they lose, I should not be blamed at all. Now, you have
to do the hand motions when you do it.
Sorry, you do it.
It's hard to imagine a more Trumpian thing for him to say. If we win, it's because of me. If we lose, it's not because of me. That's fine. I don't think folks are paying much attention to it. Certainly, it's not going to influence the outcome tonight because most people have voted on the East Coast already. Certainly, I think polls have closed in Florida. So it all is going to come back down to the Georgia race, the Pennsylvania race, Ohio, and Arizona. Arizona. If Trump wins those 4, it's a great night for him. If he wins 3, it's an okay night. If he only wins 2, it's a bad night for him, and he knows it.
But he endorsed about 300, didn't he?
He did, but most of them are going to win anyway. That's not, I mean, 300, can you name more than 5? Probably not. And again, he had that major loss in the governor's race in Georgia when he endorsed against Governor Kemp, who's probably going to win tonight. So it's a mixed bag. His night will be determined on those 4 Senate races more than anything else.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going on the Democrats' side. Nancy Pelosi has announced that she's going to go to COP27 in Egypt tomorrow. What's that all about, and why would she announce it now? Yeah,
I just read that about 15 minutes ago, that she announced privately to the DCCC today, the Democrat campaign committee. It's the group of Democrats here in the House, that she's leaving town tomorrow. That's really strange, and probably an indicator that she knows she's not going to be the Speaker of the House come January. Whether or not it is an omen of her impending retirement remains to be seen, but it would be very unusual to leave, and it's going to raise more questions, I think, than answers.
Yeah, and also at a time, delicately raised this, where her husband, Paul, is still recovering after that pretty shocking attack on him.
I hadn't thought about that, and I guess I also hadn't thought about the fact that if you really thought democracy was at risk, and if you thought, if you didn't vote Democrat, the democracy might be even more at risk. If she had pre-existing plans to go overseas, clearly she's not that concerned about the democracy. Keep in mind, it's the Speaker of the House is a very important person here. She has full-time security. She doesn't travel commercially most of the time. She travels on military air. That's the right thing to do. It happens for every Speaker of the House. So you don't just wake up this morning and say, I'm going to Africa tomorrow. This has been planned for a long time.